It is a Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill with you till 6. Opening day of the baseball season might have been yesterday, but today's the real day that we get this thing going. And the NL East is featured all week long. Last week we took a look at the Mets and the Nationals. Today we look at the Braves. Chris Dimino joined us here live from the ballpark in Atlanta, Chris, where I think the Braves and the Phillies might be hanging out together this year.
Yeah, look, if you read what everybody has said, and then they put graphs and charts and pictures to back up everything that they say, that's the way it's supposed to shake out. Washington and New York, or New York and Washington, Miami third. Let the Braves and the Phillies battle it out for who's going to be the team that has to say, higher draft pick. I guess that would be the satisfying note at the end of one of those types of seasons.
Chris, the Phillies have a lot of young players, and they've kind of flipped the switch. What's the kind of rallying cry to get into Atlanta Braves baseball? I mean, they had a nice run a couple of years ago, and it seemed like that run was pretty short-lived.
Yeah, look, they haven't won, postseason series since 2002. And when you tell people that nationally, they go, what does that mean? How is that possible? Well, it is possible. And I like the fact that their general manager, John Coppolella, is the first one to point that out. There hasn't been enough winning going on around here. There really just hasn't. The last home World Series game this team won was 1995. As they get ready to open up Turner Field one more time before they actually move about 11 and a half miles up the road, the message is that's not enough. And it had to be a teardown, complete teardown. Sticking three toes in the water was not going to work here. So what they did is they went from having one of the worst farm systems in all of baseball to having to pin who you talk to the first, second, or third best farm system. Doesn't mean 16 is going to be the year where you look and go, oh, look how many wins we have. But I do think that the idea that a cavalry might actually exist, a few guys to ride in maybe as early as this year and then certainly next year, that's what they needed to do because the other way wasn't working.
Chris Dimino, 680 The Fan in Atlanta, live at the ballpark with a look at the Braves. Obviously, they open up against the Washington Nationals today down there in Atlanta. And obviously, the Braves, as Chris kind of chronicling, not a lot of high expectations here. However, who are some of the guys, some of the new blood in there that you guys in Atlanta are excited about? Because here in Philly, while the expectations aren't high, there's more excitement around this team than there has been the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's funny because I do a radio show every morning here, and I do the pregame show, and I said it. I'm not afraid of it. If you look at the lineups today and you look at who's on the mound, it's cannons versus rocks. Now, the good news is in baseball, sometimes the rocks actually win the game. I think the one thing that they have going on here as much as anything else for the here and now, this team is not as young as everybody says. There are guys who don't have a whole lot of at-bats, but it's 24, 25. Freddie Freeman's an older 27-year-old guy. He's been doing this long enough. Markakis is 33. It's not a child's game for Atlanta. The thing that I think that's better than anything right now is Enciarte and Ibar hitting 1-2, which means you just pencil in 1, 2, and 3 every day if you're Freddie Gonzalez. They went through a stretch. It's a true story. First 31 games last year, they had 31 different lineups. Now, that's cute until it's not. It's horrifying in the world of baseball that you don't have an ability to walk to the park and have your lineup filled out until you physically get there. I like the idea that one-third of his lineup is going to be filled out every day. I think the number's got to be 60 stolen bases for those guys because if I've got a thin margin of error, I can't give away outs, but I'm also going to have to steal some runs. And I'm thinking Enciarte and Ibar, just go, just run. Freddie Freeman's got a good enough bat where he could actually handle that if a guy's running in front of him. If they don't do that, there's going to be missed opportunities, in my opinion, to score that 1 and 2 runs late in a baseball game that might find a way to a win.
Yeah, and Enciarte, many Philly fans may or may not remember him. He was here for a cup of coffee. He's now gone. The Phillies littered with a bunch of Rule 5 guys, and I look at this Braves team, too. You're right. There is a mix of some more veteran players, but is this the year that Freeman is kind of the guy there?
Everybody held their breath. There was a game in spring training where he hurt his wrist. He actually came out of a spring training game. The good news is later on that day he was back in the cage. It wasn't the wrist. It was sort of an area close to the wrist. So if he stays healthy, is he an MVP candidate? Is he going to be the best first baseman in the National League? When you get guys like Goldschmidt and others, there's a good chance he won't be. But you're paying him like, the face of the franchise. You're hitting him third every day. He had a couple of years where he played 160-plus games. That went Kaflooey last year. So, is he a 25 home run guy? Yeah, he is. Is he a 35 home run guy? I doubt it very much. One of the reasons is I'm not going to throw to him. Until Hector Oliveira proves that he can hit, until Adonis Garcia, who's actually hitting cleanup for this team. Why? Because he had 10 home runs in just 191 plate appearances last year. There's good news and bad news in that. Freddie Freeman is not going to be the guy to beat me. That's why I think you're going to have to run. If you want to open up a base and walk Freddie Freeman some, at least you're getting him 390 feet. But I don't look. I like Freddie's game a lot. He is the best hitter on this team, no doubt about it. but I don't think he's going to get many opportunities to win baseball games for this team because I just think that would be a dumb manager on the other side of the field if that happens too often.
It sounds so similar to up here. I mean, Franco's very young, but I don't know that he's going to get very many opportunities. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see the guys around. And I know a similar situation in that bullpen, the Phillies bullpen, a lot of people think it could be a disaster this year. That Braves bullpen, same situation?
Well, look, Willie's healthy. He actually had a good run last year until he tore the Achilles. Jim Johnson was pretty good here, wasn't good when they sent him away. O'Flaherty, who listen to this, in 2011, I've been watching baseball for a long time, Mike. The greatest bargain I've ever seen in baseball was the Braves bullpen. For about $1.4 million, you had O'Flaherty, Venners, and Kimbrel. $1.4 million. Now, look, a couple of them blew out, and Kimbrel's no longer here, obviously, but it was fun to watch. They brought O'Flaherty back because they didn't have one lefty. They had 6 lefties in spring training out of the bullpen. None of them made the team. They brought O'Flaherty back in. You've watched this game. I've watched this game. Here's how it's changed. I kind of equate the bullpen to like special teams in football. It's always offense, defense, and don't forget about special teams. Well, you only talk about special teams when they blow up in your face. That's what the bullpen is. The quickest, easiest way to swing your wins and losses 10 to 12 games a year in today's baseball is what your bullpen does or doesn't do. And I'm afraid with the starting staff this team has, too much tax on the bullpen, it might be more of a churn and burn than you ever want. And when arms start to hang as early as July possibly, that's when the kick in the groins actually happen. And your loss total is the one that goes up, not your win total.
Yeah, and we'll see. I'm interested because the Phillies, there is excitement, and people think that maybe in 2 years this team could be fun to watch. Is that a similar timeline for you guys?
Yes. They got Dansby Swanson back, a local kid in the Arizona deal. Look, here's the good news. They found a perfect trade partner in Arizona, not once but twice. Tony La Russa and Dave Stewart don't give 6 rips about prospects or anything to do with tomorrow. They need to win now. So you got the number 1 overall pick 1 year after he was number 1, less than a year after he was the number 1 pick, coming to Atlanta. He's a local guy. Good-looking kid, face of the franchise. They're hoping he's actually the player. Ozzie Albies, 19-year-old second baseman or shortstop, depending on what they do. Malik Smith is a center fielder. Enciarte gets to stay because you have him under financial control for 5 years. One of them is going to go to the corner. It's just going to give me more speed. Can I project a little bit? If I'm thinking about this Braves team next year, I might actually be hitting my pitcher 8 because I could have a Malik Smith, Enciarte, and possibly Ibar hitting 9-1-2, which at that point I think gives you a better opportunity to do some things that you need to do when you don't hit a lot of home runs. You're in a home run hitting park. Is there anybody up there who can hit home runs for you guys right now?
Franco, I mean, he led the spring training in homers, but other than him, I've been hard-pressed to – the Phillies haven't had a 100 RBI guy since 2011. I find it hard-pressed to find a 25-homer, 100 RBI guy with this lineup. I think Franco can be that guy, Chris, but I don't think he's got anybody around him right now. I mean, they got some young players.
You're in the same boat here. Right, you're in the same boat, and this team isn't as young as you guys. I looked at your roster. They've got 25, and we've got 25 and 26 here. You've got just a tick younger. I think, though, that your defense has to be so buttoned up. Good teams giving up 29 outs lose games. Bad teams get killed in those types of games. Play your defense, steal a few bases, score some runs.
Yep.
You're not going to hit a bunch of home runs. Deal with that part of it. Just find a way to actually steal something over the course of a game a few times a week. And I do think, look, I read one thing where the guy at ESPN said the Braves are going to win 59 games this year. I'll do the math. That's 103 losses. It's hard to lose 100 games. It is. It's hard. It's hard to be the best team in any league. It's hard to be the worst team. If you're losing 100 games, you actually either are the 2 years away or you pick some wrong guys who you're trying to build around. I think if you're going to suffer 90-loss seasons, you better have that idea that this is just they're getting their teeth kicked in a little bit. They're all going to be better next year for it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Look, the Phillies lost 99 games last year. They trotted out Sean O'Sullivan to the mound. I mean, guys like that. You're right. To lose 100 games is tough, but
it's hard.
Young guys, Nola, the kid Eichhoff. They got a lot of kids in those Hamels and the Giles deal that should make things fun. And I think this season should be fun, even though the losses may pile up. The Braves and the Phils, many people think could be at the bottom. Of course, it all starts today. Chris Dimino, 680 The Fan in Atlanta, where the Braves take on the Nationals today. Thanks, Chris.
All right, Mike. Always appreciate it.